Today's Evening First Alert weather show is brought to you by Bresky Siding.
And good Monday evening, Mid-Michigan. Chief Meteorologist Chris Eastlick with your Monday night weather chats. And tonight we are going to talk about a wintry mix that could impact at least parts of Mid-Michigan as we head into tomorrow morning. We are not expecting it to be everywhere, but there are some areas that are under a winter weather advisory, and even the First Alert Sky Tracker for the moment is showing that we do have a couple of areas of wintry mix that are starting to at least show up on radar. Before we get started, let's see, we've got about 63 people on tonight, and I'm sure we'll have more joining along the way. Good to see Sherry, Wendy, and Crystal. Mark, good evening to you. And Mark is asking, is it spring yet? Not quite, but we are inching our way closer. And while we're on the subject of that, I've mentioned it on the live stream before, but if you haven't noticed, our average high is now going up. And so it's not where, of course, many would want it to be, but that average high going up signifies that we are past what is typically the worst part of the winter, climatologically speaking, as far as our coldest temperatures. And now we are on the upswing, and it's hard to believe we're almost through that first third of February. And I guess tomorrow you could count that being through the first third, since we only have about 28 days. So we are getting closer to that, and it'll be March before you know it. Here is the winter weather advisory, though, for tonight. We do have areas like Roscommon, Ogemaw, and Iosco County, as well as Alcona County, under that winter weather advisory that is now in effect. It's been in effect for about an hour, and that will continue until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And this is primarily for a wintry mix. The main concern is some light icing. However, some snow and sleet could also be involved. I do think there's a possibility there could be a little bit of both. And if the snow takes over, we could see around an inch of snow, which isn't a ton, or we could see that light glaze of ice, which to me is the worst of the two. I would rather have the inch of snow rather than any ice at all. And in some of these areas, and a lot more areas last Thursday night and into Friday, we had some freezing drizzle to worry about, and led to several school closings into Friday morning. And it's just one of those pesky things that always seems to just be just enough to cause some problems out on the roads. And so we'll be watching closely for tonight. But I want to go back to the radar because I want to show you what's interesting for tonight is this has widespread precipitation showing up on radar for now. But if we take a look at the actual map where we've got some of the observation sites around the area, and I'll pull some of these up so you can actually see it. I'll pull up our browser computer over here, is if you look at some of the areas a little bit closer to home where some of that precipitation is overhead, areas like MBS Airport, Midland Airport, and also over in Mount Pleasant, you're not seeing any confirmation that there's precipitation actually reaching the ground. If you did, there would usually be a red indicator here. It would be like a red symbol. We're not really seeing that. We're not seeing that near Oscoda either. We haven't seen it in West Branch. We haven't seen it in Houghton Lake, and I certainly haven't seen it in the Thumb. And so what this is telling me tonight is the fact that we have all of this precipitation up at the cloud level, some of it a mixture of rain and snowflakes. That's the purple that you're seeing. And then we also have the possibility of, again, that icing potential later on tonight. But that area that you're seeing on the radar that looks like just one big winter mess, none of this is actually reaching the surface. And that's true in West Michigan as well, according to that radar map that has all of the airport observations. Now, could there be maybe a flurry reaching the ground somewhere? I don't think that's impossible. But as far as anything that's meaningful that is hitting the ground, that really just doesn't seem to be the case up to this point. So as we go through the night, kind of here's how things will play out. As I expect us to remain dry here in the near term, outside of anything super isolated. But if we fast forward to about the midnight hour or just after, you can see these areas of pink that start to show up. You've got some snow mixed in there too, not necessarily over the TV5 viewing area, but it shows you a variety of different things could be possible tonight. And so if you take a look at that, notice that it's not everywhere. There's gaps in some of these areas of pink, so there's likely a scattered component to this. We're not talking about a ton of liquid precipitation to begin with. This system doesn't have a lot of moisture to work with already, let alone enough moisture to really get to the ground. So I think it's possible we see some of these areas of winter mix overnight, but I don't necessarily think this is a repeat of last Thursday and Friday. Now, anytime there is ice in the forecast, I always want you to be careful because we know it doesn't really take much ice to really make things slippery. We've been through freezing drizzle several times already this winter in addition to snow, and I think that's enough to pay attention to. But also the amount of time that this lingers, it really doesn't hang out for very long. And so by the time we get back to tomorrow morning, most of it seems like it's over and done with as we go through the first part of your Tuesday. And so I want you to pay attention to this. If you're in our northern counties, you're under a winter weather advisory for a reason. But I also think this one could be pretty minor compared to some of the other ones that we have had so far this year. And there's also a slight chance that by the time this system gets underway, the better moisture could end up being ultimately to the north anyway and not cause as many problems for us tomorrow morning. So there is a chance that this advisory could be a little bit more precautionary than anything. So if you're asking me about any school closures or things like that, I will never say never. Anytime there's a chance for a little icing in the morning. But do I think this is necessarily the same as last week? I do not. And you'll also notice that take a look at some of these temperatures that eventually show up by 12 o'clock. By lunchtime and even a few hours before, we're already starting to rise above freezing, and we're not just at 33. These temperatures are getting into the mid-30s tomorrow. And I think there's potential they could even sneak into the upper 30s at times. If you pause at 2:30, Saginaw's at 37, Flint's at 37. Could we get close to 40 in some areas tomorrow? I don't think it's impossible that a place like Flint could actually touch 40 tomorrow. So I think even if we have some icy roads here and there tomorrow morning, I don't think the problem sticks around very long. When you combine some of these rapidly warming temperatures tomorrow, plus any road treatments that might be ongoing as well. And so I think this could certainly be a lot worse. There is the potential we could see some scattered snow showers into the latter half of the day. These are not expected to be heavy. I think these are more of a nuisance than anything. And then they just fizzle out into Wednesday morning, and we're back to just dry conditions early Wednesday. If I flip over to the ice predictor here, there's only about a couple hundredths of an inch expected. Some of that may try to go down into Huron County, but Huron County, you're not even included in the advisory. I think that speaks volumes. So I don't think this will be anything for Huron County compared to what you dealt with last Friday night, where you had the winds that are blowing all around. You had those blizzard-like conditions, plus that winter weather advisory that came out at about midnight for some lake effect bands that all of a sudden came out of almost nowhere. There wasn't really a lot of forecast data until it actually happened that we were expecting lake effect snow to really be a big thing going into Friday night and early Saturday. So you combine that with some of the wind that we had Friday night, and you really had a nasty situation in some of those thumb communities as we started the weekend. So this, again, I don't want to diminish this, but a few hundredths of an inch of ice, we're not going to be talking about widespread power outages or anything like that. I think this is just going to be a potential nuisance on the morning drive tomorrow. We'll get through it, and then we're pretty much done for the week. If you look at the 7-day, there's really not a ton. We've got this chance. We've got maybe a few flurries on Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday look dry. The weekends on Saturday looks dry for now. Sunday, I included a very small chance for snow. There's one model that has an area of snow moving through the state. The rest of them are much further to the south, and so I didn't think there was any reason to put anything higher than a 20 this weekend. It's possible that we could see that system move through, but I don't think it's the most likely scenario. So don't be surprised if that 20 for Sunday ends up disappearing. So it appears that not only are we getting a break from some of the bitterly cold temperatures this week, it's still cold, but much better than we've been doing. But we also have the chance to maybe get a break from some of the winter weather too. And for those of you who may have watched our live stream last week, we had the Airborne Angler on. Marty Saliga, and he was talking about how some of his favorite ice fishing conditions are with weeks like this, where you don't have to necessarily just go crazy with bundling up, and you actually get a chance to, enjoy yourself out there on the really good ice that we have. Of course, you always want to make sure you're treating every ice day the same and using precautions, but we should be able to hold a lot of that ice structure even with some warmer temperatures this week. It will diminish a little bit, but I don't think we're going to be to a critical point, at least not right away. So we'll see what happens with that. Richard asks, do you think the roads will be bad in Midland for tomorrow? Richard, I think the main concern is to the north. I'd be careful tomorrow morning just to be on the safe side if the roads are wet and they have that little shine on them. But it's very possible Midland might not see anything tonight. I really think there's a possibility it could be locked up in our northern counties or potentially even north of there. So I think it's a lower chance the further south you go. So I wouldn't necessarily say that Midland's at the top of my list for being concerned, at least at this point. Now we'll see what happens as we go throughout the night. If that changes, we'll of course have everything for you tomorrow morning and any updates on that. Let's just take a quick look at the wind. I do think tomorrow could be a little breezier than today. Not so much in the morning. Seems like we've got some gusts near 20 miles per hour or so early in the day. Likely picking up a little bit more in the afternoon. Could see some gusts, I think, between about 30 and 35, maybe more of a localized basis. Anywhere you see sort of that red shading is kind of those gusts that are around 30 or higher. And so it's not for everybody. Certainly not the windiest day that we've had recently. May see a brief flare-up into Wednesday. Looks like another breezy day Wednesday itself, but this isn't even close to the worst day we've had with wind. So I think this week is, again, more of a nuisance than anything. I've been using that word a lot, but that's kind of what it boils down to. It just really doesn't seem like there's too much that's severe. If we can get past tomorrow morning, I think we'll be in pretty good shape the rest of the week. And Lori makes a good comment here. Lori London, no single digits this week. Your wind chills, I don't expect to really fall below zero much this week. I think a lot of the time the wind is going to keep wind chills that are probably above zero most of the time. Maybe brief dips here and there. But as far as anything else, I don't necessarily think we're going to touch zero or go below for much of this week, if at all. Maxine says, My Pleasant ice. I'm going to assume, Maxine, that you mean Mount Pleasant ice. I don't think a ton there. Again, we're talking maybe a few hundredths, if anything. So there's a lot to like about this forecast as we go through this week. Your highs tomorrow, again, make this a very quick issue, if it is even an issue tomorrow morning. Most areas in the middle to upper 30s. And again, don't be deceived by the radar tonight. It might be playing tricks on you. It looks like we've got some of that winter precipitation overhead, but again, not really seeing much actually hitting ground level at this time. But yeah, I mean, that's really what it is tonight. No major systems this week. Derek's getting out the swim trunks, he says. I've been in shorts. It's what I do, though. It felt a little bit better today. I'm sure it'll feel better later this week. No problem, Sherry. Valentine's Day, mid-30s, upper 30s, I think. So, yeah, a lot to like this week. If anyone has any quick questions, feel free. Give it another 30 seconds to a minute or so. And then that'll be it for the stream tonight. And Christy, good report. Hoping not a lot of ice in Gladwin. Radar is lit up, but nothing hitting the ground. Appreciate that report, especially in the Gladwin area. We don't have a lot of observations there. Mike, no problem. Christy always gives me some good reports. And Christy, I'm not concerned about Gladwin County. Would I say never? No. But I think it's noteworthy that you are not in the advisory. So I don't think you're in the most dangerous area. I would be careful if you're traveling tomorrow morning just to be safe. But I would be surprised if Gladwin County sees anything significant. Cheryl, can I get my poor car washed? Yes, you can. Because even if we see wet weather tonight, I don't think it's going to be a ton. I washed my car just the other day. It was overdue. Had to get some of that salt off. I hate this time of year when everything turns to slush, and I know it's going to get worse later this week as we warm up. I don't mind snow. I don't even mind the cold. I hate slush. It just makes everything gross. Wet garage, wet floor mats in the garage, just everything. Hate slush. For those of you who have dogs, wet dogs, just nothing great about slush. Sherry, I will take the warm weather. I am over the cold temperatures. Yeah, I think we've hit that point in the year where even people who tolerate winter are ready to move on. And again, Mike, I think I responded to you, but if I didn't, no problem at all. And it looks like, Mike, you're a veteran by your picture. Thank you for your service. So if anything changes as we go throughout tonight, if for some reason we start seeing, and Lori, you're right, give the road commission a little bit of a break too. If we have any advisories that are issued overnight or late tonight, we will of course update you on those if anything changes. Similar to last Thursday, again, we got through that night with no advisories up until about 9 o'clock, and then the Weather Service in Gaylord issued some, I would say, right as we started our 10 o'clock newscast, because it was clear that drizzle was going to be more of a problem that night, and it ended up being that way. So if anything changes, we'll, of course, let you all know. But in the meantime, I would be aware tomorrow morning if you're traveling, but I don't think this is an event to get worked up about, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily think this is going to keep you inside all day. I don't think this is something that you need to be terribly nervous about. Just one of those things that just kind of have it on your radar, no pun intended. Chris Morse, spring break can't come soon enough. I hear you, Chris. I hear you. I hear you. I definitely want spring at this point. As crazy as it sounds, I want to cut the grass again. I don't know why I enjoy it, but I do. And just being outside, I can throw headphones on and just enjoy being out in the fresh air. Baseball season coming up. Pitchers and catchers report this month for those of you who are baseball fans. So, yeah. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for joining. As always, we appreciate it. And, of course, if anything more active pops up, we will have you covered. Until then, we will see you tomorrow.